Hello and welcome to this class or master class on hospitality chief accountant. In this week, we are going to talk about the structure of hotel finance department, how it is connected with the other hotels, and what are the basis of hospitality accounting. So we're going to be covering only the basics in this first week. If you have any questions, if you're not clear, you can let me know in the weekly live class whenever we are going to have that so that we can understand and clarify any confusions that you may have in your understanding. So before we go and understand the entire hospitality finance structure, let us understand about what are hospitality operations and cost structures. So in hospitality, there are many divisions, right? There are divided into profit centers and cost centers. So room division and F&B department are, and the other operating departments are basically the revenue generating centers, revenue generating cost centers. So we call them revenue profit centers. So or you can call them profit centers. So because every department like room division, they are generating mostly the guest income, the room income, the rental income, where the hotel is primarily built upon. Some hotels which are smaller in structure and may not have much of F&B operations, they may not come. They may have a smaller F&B operations, maybe only one outlet or more than one outlet. But generally, a hotel, a four-star hotel or a five-star hotel, usually have more than one outlets. So the structure is one, they have a all-day dining restaurant, and then they have usually a specialty restaurant. So the specialty restaurants can depend on the size of the property. There is usually a pool bar. There is usually in-room dining at all the hotels, mostly star-rated hotels. Apart from the all-day dining, so there are three separate profit centers minimum in F&B department, and then there is usually depending on the locality of the hotel, the resort, or there may be a specialty restaurant. There can be a Japanese restaurant, there can be a Chinese restaurant, there can be a or an Indian restaurant, or there can be any other type of restaurants which is serving specialty foods. And then to support the restaurants, there is usually a kitchen associated with each of the restaurant. But certain restaurants like are so small that they don't need a separate kitchen. So therefore them, and usually it's also beneficial for the hotel to combine certain parts of the kitchen. For example, you don't need to have a cold kitchen for every kitchen, right? Every type of restaurant because the basic needs are same. You don't may not need to have a butchery section for each kitchen. You may not need to have a commissary kitchen for each section. There may be only a specialized cooking part in every restaurant. The rest of them can be centralized so that you can save on manning, you can save on process, you can save on the overall ingredient cost and wastages. So this way, usually you have a shared kitchen and also an individualized specialized kitchen. So the implication of this structure is important for the finance chief accountants or the finance managers to understand because it will impact your accounting. It will impact the how the costs are allocated to each profit center. So there has to be a very clear method. So we're gonna be learning that when we are doing the other future videos. And then usually there are administrative departments, for example, marketing department, for example, designing department, for example, the general administration, where the overall F&B manager and the secretary and those staff which are common for all the restaurants. The employees which will be on a specific to the restaurant will normally be employed under the cost center, the under the another profit center, but there will be certain staff which are common and is going to be shared with all of them. So they will become administrative staff. Similarly, in room division, even though the income is all coming from the room rental, there are different departments who are going to serve the needs of the guest. So it can be categorized into front office, housekeeping, concierge, and other services. So depending on the size of the hotel, they can be managed by one person or they can be managed by multiple peoples. Even in housekeeping, You may have separate departments for public area cleaning, for rooms cleaning, and then for gardening. So depending on again the size of the structure, size of the hotel, and the structure of how they are maintained. So it's important for the finance department to have a clear structure and how each department is related with the other. So how they are related with the other, we're gonna be learning in another video. But you need to have a clear structure of the hotel operations. Then moving on to the other departments, you may have other profit center in the hotel, depending again on the size and location. You may have a spa, you may have a laundry, you may have a transportation department, you may have a gift shop, you may have also the adventure sports. You may also have the hair salon. You may also have uh, other type of activities or golf clubs and other kind of activities which the hotel is providing to its consumers, to its guests. So they again form part of the other another profit center where we want to understand the profitability of each of these areas. Now, why we want to get so much so detailed accounting? Because why we just not combine every revenue into revenue and every cost into the cost? Instead, why we want to have a separate line for every one of them is because so that we can understand the profitability of each operations. Since the hotel has multiple guests, multiple services, it may not be viable for hotel to continue providing the services in loss, right? So if we can pinpoint which services are more profitable, or if there are loss making, you may want to remove them from the catalog. The hotel is under no compulsion to provide services which are running at a loss. Sometimes you may have for example, telephone department. Now nowadays people are not making calls via hotel lines. They are mostly calling via mobiles. They are Skypes, they are VoIPs. But there are certain locations where the internet is not feasible. The only the landlines are possible. So in those cases, you may be having to call via the hotel lines. Otherwise, you normally are not going to use the hotel phone for calling to your friends or your family or your anywhere else, right? Unless you have no battery in your phone, no charge, no money, or etc. But to maintain the department, you need a person. You need you need equipments. So there is usually an expense which has to be there. But is it going to be profitable or not? But so that you can obviously look at the revenue and the cost, whether it's reasonable, or whether it's reasonable to run the profit share, run it for profit or not. But certain departments, certain services are there, which, like for example, laundry, for example, again the telephone, you have to provide because it's not a part of your revenue; it's a part of offering. It's a standard, right? The telephones in the rooms are a standard which you have to provide because you may have to call the hotel in for internal lines. You may have to call the guest, but and you may have to have somebody in the service center to keep on picking up the phone, because otherwise the guest may not be able to talk to other people. So the cost is there, the infrastructure is there. So now the question is whether you want to treat it as a revenue center because it may have a potential of making money, or you want to treat it as a cost because is not really a profit center. It's just a cost center where the cost is there and you have to provide that cost because as a part of your hotel services. But you're not going to make you will not be able to make a profit out of it. So what is the point of looking at the revenue and expenses every month when we know we cannot make it? But it's wise to look at the profit, the revenue generated by this department, or all the possibilities of how we can generate the revenue. But you may not want to spend too much time on it because it may not be off worthwhile. So the hotel normally make decision where they want to focus their efforts and energy on to be able to make more money or to be able to reduce the cost. Now there are other three departments which you see on the screen: administrative, sales and marketing, and maintenance department, which is usually a cost center because they are not really directly involved in servicing for revenue generation. For example, they are not serving the room, they are not cleaning the room, they are not providing the F&B services. So the revenue, which is basically earned by these departments, their job, the administrative, sales and marketing, and maintenance, is just to provide the support services to these three departments. So the administrative will include finance, human resource, information technology, executive office, which is the GM's office usually. So each spa, laundry, all-day dining restaurant, or front office, they will not have their own accountants, or they will not have their own HR. They will not have their own IT department. So all those departments which are serving to everybody are usually consolidated into one department at the hotel level, so that the services are provided to everybody equally. So the procurement and everything else is done through the administration office. Their cost cannot be allocated to the other department because there is no direct relationship between the services that they provide and the revenue which is generated. There is no activity like that. So it's instead of allocating these costs to the individual cost centers, the hospitality accounting usually keep these costs as centralized, or we call it in hospitality as undistributed expenses, undistributed departments. So these expenses are not distributed to the operating centers, rather keep at combined and look at year to year basis for controlling purpose. Similar way, sales and marketing has reservations, marketing, revenue department, and sales management. Maintenance usually have preventive maintenance and repair. So this is generally structure for hotels, whether small size or large size. How many people manage these departments may depend on the labor, the size of the hotel. Certain hotel there is no head for undistributed expenses. For example, administration, sales and marketing, maintenance department. These are generally, they may be managed by the GM directly, or by the juniors. So not every department will have their own directors. It depends on the size of the hotel, right? So that's about the hotel operation and cost structures.